Hello, everybody. Welcome to Nintendo Expansion Pass here on Boss Rush Games. I'm your host and I decided ADV. Joining me is the one, the only Boss Rush himself, Mr. Corey Deary. Hello, good sir.
Hello. Happy almost midnight to you, sir.
Yes, well, it's, in a sense.
For me, it is. I know you're an hour behind, but it's fine. We're here. We're doing the thing.
Before we get into today's episode, Corey, we have some Patreon shout-outs. So let's shout them out real quick.
We do. If you want to support Nintendo Power Block and Expansion Pass on Patreon, you can do so by heading over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/BossRushNetwork, where you can become a Patreon producer at the $5 tier or just get early access to our shows for $1. Just $1 a month. You get early access to 5 separate shows. So yeah, come support us. Our Patreon producers for this episode are Adriel Munger, Austin Campbell, Celeste Roberts, Christian Skipper, my wife Sana Dierig, Francisco Santillan, and Rebecca Jewell. I want to thank all of our Patreon producers. I want to thank all of our patrons, and I want to thank all of our free listeners. Remember, all of our content remains free. But if you are a free listener, you can leave us a 5-star rating and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, like the video, share it with your friends, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. Yeah. So you can do that, and you can check out bossrush.net, and yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, Corey, I'm going to ask you, because Nintendo is expanding in a big way.
Are they?
Yeah, because if we look at it, they're making a theme park with Super Nintendo Land. They're hitting the movies with Super Mario Brothers, which is an amazing second trailer. Everybody go watch that trailer. And their games, they are still, bringing out new IPs and some trademark stuff is coming, and we got more sequels coming out. So it kind of looks like they're going to have a big 2023. And I kind of want to ask you, because we was talking about, I think this on Power Block, that Nintendo is kind of becoming like Disney in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
and everything. And it got me thinking about that, to be like, we've never talked about Nintendo in that kind of expansion in a way. Back in the day, Nintendo, of course, they had the toys, but they had the Super Mario Brothers cartoon with Legend of Zelda. They had the cereal with Mario Bros. Cereal. And it's just like, man, we always talked about Nintendo as a game company, but we never talked about them in in the capacity of expanding from that and everything. And so I kind of want to ask you, where do you think Nintendo is gonna go next? Or do you like where they're going if we're going to put them in like a Disney route in a sense?
I mean, I think in terms of you look at Nintendo and how they're kind of structured now, as opposed to like the 90s when they were just kind of licensing their stuff out to like
Mm-hmm.
whoever to make whatever. I think Nintendo wants to be very hands-on, right? Which
Yes.
is I know we're talking about Nintendo in the sense of Disney, but that's why they didn't go with Disney. It's the same reason why the J.K. Rowling and the Wizarding World didn't go with Disney, because they want full creative control, right? Nintendo wants full creative control. Well, Disney also wants full creative control. And so you mash those things up, you're not going to get the result that you want, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. Disney does a fantastic job of immersing you in a
Mm-hmm.
world and making you believe that you're there, and they have like characters and stuff, right? Like Galaxy's Edge is one of the most immersive things, right?
Yes.
Pandora from Avatar is also very over the top, like incredible, right? It kind of almost makes me care about Avatar, you know. Uh, but with that, like you don't like the creators had to give up some creative liberty, right? And so, I mean, not that Disney's not going to listen to James Cameron, right? I mean, he's one of the most prolific filmmakers ever, so he had a lot of input on how to create the Pandora section of the Animal Kingdom over at Disney World.
Yes.
But you know, when it comes to like the Harry Potter stuff, Disney wanted to do it on their own, and they wanted, you know, the Harry Potter people wanted it to look like the movies, so you feel like you're immersed in that world and stuff, right? So,
Mhm.
um, Universal gives them that creative liberty, and I think I think that's why Universal kind of feels so not like you look at Disney, and even though things are very different and distinct, they all it feels very much like it all goes together and was planned out, right? And
Yeah.
you look at Universal, and it's kind of like uh, doesn't really feel like this flow. Like you know, the flow isn't as good as Disney. Some of the stuff looks like they spent way more money on it than other things, right? And not
Yes.
that that doesn't happen at Disney, but it's way less noticeable, you know, unless you go 10, 20, 30, 40 times, you know, it's just one of those things. So, I mean, when you look at Nintendo going with Universal, it really kind of makes sense for them because Nintendo loves to have creative control over everything, right? And
Mhm.
I I don't know. I look at Super Nintendo World or oh, it's World, right? News. It's Super Nintendo World, right? That's what their theme
Yeah.
park expansion is called.
I think so. Yeah.
The one in Japan looks very claustrophobic. I just I hope when they bring it to Florida and Hollywood that like Universal kind of gives them more room to expand. Uh,
Hmm.
because I look at the Japan stuff and it's just like it looks very claustrophobic. It looks like things are just kind of like built on top of each other and not necessarily in a way that a theme park should. There's a lot of stairs and a lot of ramps, which is, you know, kind of uncommon for a North American theme park. Like you go to Disney, there's not very many stairs or ramps at all.
Really? Yeah. Really. Man, just pretty much when you walk around that park, if you do see stairs
Hmm.
or ramp, it's like the ramp I could understand going for like the attractions.
Yeah.
That, but just like it being a round,
Hmm.
no, I do not see barely. I haven't seen any of it. And it's been a while since I've been there. And I'm just like where?
Yeah. And I mean, Universal in Orlando is actually building a third park that's going to house another Harry Potter section. It's going to house the Super Nintendo World, and it's going to house
Okay.
one other thing, right? So they're going to have a lot of room in Orlando. I'm not 100% sure about Hollywood, but I know in Orlando they're going to have a lot of room to play with. Uh, so my initial thought is that they will have the room and make it something really unique and interesting, maybe even more interesting than Japan, right? I don't think they're just gonna.
Yes.
I mean, I know the attractions will probably be like, you know, the rides will be the same, you know, at least initially.
Mhm.
Um, but I think they're gonna have a lot of room to spread things out, which I think will make that feel better. You know, I I'm trying to think about Universal because like there's stuff at Universal Orlando that they don't have in Hollywood. Like the Harry Potter section in
Mhm.
Orlando is spread across two parks, and there's different aspects of Harry Potter world. Whereas in Hollywood, there's only like the castle and like the stuff kind of surrounding
Oh,
the
wow.
castle. So like Orlando is like that
Before you go,
space to go.
But before you go on, I always thought Universal was one part. Didn't even know they expanded the two or they got the one in Hollywood. Because I went to Universal um when I was in eighth grade because we went to Florida
Hmm.
for our trip,
Yeah.
school trip, and we went to Disney World for one day, but then like the following day we went to Universal, and I
Hmm.
think that's when they was kind of like opening. I think it was like in their second or third year or something, and I only thought they only had that one park because I think Nickelodeon was there
Yeah,
at Universal.
there was a Nickelodeon park down there. I don't know if it was Universal or not, but they ended up like their second park is called Islands of Adventure, which is where all the Marvel stuff is. Um,
Okay. And so yeah, and I see and at that time I think they were I think it was just that one part because I didn't
mhm.
know like I said, I didn't know they did a second one.
Yeah, Universal's been in like major overhaul mode. Like I read an article today that they're like besides their third park in Orlando, they're building four new roller coasters and like what do you call it? Like big rides in the next year to try to compete with
Hmm.
Disney because Disney's overhauling everything, right? Because uh, Disney's opening that Tron roller coaster in the spring, and they have a bunch of stuff at
Uh
Epcot that's supposed to open, and they just opened the Guardians of the Galaxy ride, which is awesome. Uh, so Disney's been expanding as well. There's there's been a rumor for so long about a fifth park at Disney World, and I wish they would just for just the crowds alone to give them somewhere else to go because it is so busy. Um,
I wonder where though
no,
they did the fifth part.
do they have? There's enough room there to build like five or six more parks and still have room down there. It's insane how much
Really?
it's insane how much land Disney owns down there. Like it's incredibly like you look at a map and you look at like how much room the parks and all the hotels take
Hmm.
up. It's like not very much room in terms of how much room they have. The
Do they
problem
have one
is,
online,
yeah, you can look
like a map
online.
of a line? Yeah, I'm gonna look it up out online because I wonder I wonder over time did they buy more land to expand
No,
Disney?
it's all the land that they've owned since the 60s.
Oh wow.
The problem with it though is that most of it is swampland. So like they have to like prepare the land before they build on top of it, you know? And
Gotcha.
Universal
Okay.
kind of does the same thing. Um yeah, so for those who don't know, the Magic Kingdom at Disney World is actually like they actually had to build a building and the park is built on top of the building. And the building
Hmm.
underneath is where like all the employees go. Like you look at a top view of the park, that's a second floor of a building. And like underneath is like this big subway and tunnel system for the employees to get from uh land to land because Walt Disney didn't like in Disneyland he saw a cowboy walking through Tomorrowland and he stopped him and asked him why he was walking through Tomorrowland because it broke immersion, right? Because the cowboy was
Yeah.
supposed to be in Frontierland. And he said, "Well, that's where the employee parking is and there's no other way to get there." And so when they were planning Disney World, they decided to have this underground tunnel system and they figured they would just build it underneath the theme park. Well, when you're building on swampland, you have to like solidify the land and then build a building on
Yeah.
top of the land and then you build the attractions and the park on top of the building.
Oh wow.
It's really
Did
cool.
not know that.
There's some really cool documentaries on Disney Plus about that specific system that they use. It's really
Mhm.
fascinating. Um,
It's funny, my mom had a book about Disney, like just I think at that time, like around the 80s or 90s, just about the attractions
mhm.
and everything and roller coasters and stuff.
Yeah,
And I and I remember she had it. I think it got messed up because we had a flood and everything.
yeah,
Um, but it's just that's fascinating, dude, to hear about that, like
hmm
that history.
yeah. Which is why I think like to bring it back to Nintendo when Universal builds that
Hmm.
third park, they're really gonna have to like spread everything out, because one of the original issues with the park is that like it didn't like some of the park didn't settle correctly, and so they had to like rebuild parts of the park over time. I mean, Disney's really famous for like, we're gonna renovate this land because it's out of date and we want updated attractions and whatever. But sometimes it's like, especially in the 80s and the 90s, and
Mhm.
more the 80s than the 90s, but even the early 90s, like part of the park renovations were so the park would stop sinking into the swamps, and there was new infrastructure that they had to build to prevent it from sinking. So,
I would definitely give it to Disney for their engineers
hmm
and everything, because they got some good, like they got a good creative team,
hmm
and I know they, of course, Disney's making tons of money, but that money is well spent.
yeah, well, that's
Um,
why their stock is always like their stock is, I mean, it's it's higher now than it's ever been, well, relative to like the 80s and 90s and mid
mm,
2000s, right? I mean, it's low now because reasons, but like Disney stock, it is has been higher than it's ever been within the last like 10 years, because even though they bring in a lot of revenue and they make a lot of money, they're always reinvesting the money into new attractions, into new like technology for movies, and you know
yeah,
now they're I mean, they're losing like millions of dollars a year on Disney Plus, but they're investing that money into infrastructure, like streaming infrastructure and that kind of thing. So uh also the content that goes on Disney Plus, but that's not here nor there. But to go back to Nintendo, the way that they're expanding, like they're actually the opposite of Disney. They're actually being extremely careful, whereas like in the 40s and 50s, Walt Disney was extremely like kind of flippant with his money, and his brother was the one that controlled all the money. His brother had
mm,
to find the money to fund Walt's ideas, whereas Nintendo is like extremely careful about what they're doing, and they've made mistakes and they don't want to make those mistakes again. And so, yeah, they want their hands on
definitely.
everything, and that's why the theme park looks the way it does. That's why the
Hmm.
movie, like they've been very hands on with the movie and why it's been delayed, and you know why the
I
directs
think,
happen for the movie trailers, because they want to be the ones to show it off.
right, and I think it's because definitely when we look at those financial meetings and
hmm
everything, or stockholder meetings, they always ask Nintendo, "What are you guys doing?"
hmm
Because these are the big wigs who invested the money in it and everything. Because like even when the writer was alive, he had to answer them and
hmm
everything. I know there was I think someone bought some stock in Nintendo just to ask a question. I
Yeah.
think last minute or something, and it's just like when you when what people don't understand is when that Mario movie happened and Nintendo really didn't have their hands on it, really kind of like not hurt Nintendo, but they did a. I'm like, this was a Japanese company who have kind of an honor system and everything, and because I think because of that, controlling the message and making sure that it's done right, they want to make sure Nintendo is just like, now this is the reason why we keep our hands on stuff and everything, because
hmm
we know what we want to say and get the message out. And if we let someone else do it, it's going to get mismanaged.
Yeah.
And that could hurt us as a company and as a business. That's why they don't want their games on PC, because if anything happens to it, there's still this idea that uh, if something happens to their game, those parents are going to blame Nintendo, even though Nintendo had no not say no say they didn't do any of that, with the mods or something. They didn't program that stuff. So that's why Nintendo don't want their stuff on PC. That's why they get hard on Smash Tournament and everything. Is because it's like if something happens in that Smash Tournament, they're gonna blame Nintendo
Yeah.
um and everything. as a company, you don't want to be blamed for stuff that is out of your control or you had nothing to do. And if you are a company who holds the rights and that's your IP, you have a right to say um and what goes on and how stuff is delivered, you know.
Hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, I think Nintendo's being smart with like starting small with this like a section of a theme park. I
Mhm.
actually think they would have done well with like a full sized kind of theme park without Universal's help. But the problem is they don't have the infrastructure and the tool set to build a park on their own, so they needed help, right? So
Yes.
that's why they partnered with Universal. But I actually think like you could totally structure um you could almost have like a whole Disney World esque set of theme parks, you know? I mean, you could definitely
Yeah.
have like, like Peach's Castle is like the centerpiece, and, you could have like two parks with castles, right? Because you definitely want to have Zelda's castle is at somewhere too. Although, when you go to the Magic Kingdom, they have like three or four castles now, so I don't know what I'm talking about, I guess. But
Well,
you could
this I
definitely
think
I mean you could definitely do like, okay, well, what's Nintendo's equivalent of Tomorrowland? And you'd be like, oh, well, Star Fox and Metroid are spacey, so you could do some Space Land, or Mario Galaxy over there. Or what's their Fantasyland? Well, it's clearly like Kirby and Mario and Yoshi, and
yeah.
their Adventureland would be Donkey Kong Country. And I mean, not that you would want to do that one for one, but I mean, you could totally like match things up with Disney and do things differently if you wanted to. But there's a lot there that they could do.
Right. And Nintendo got the IP for that because like shoot Pikmin, they could fit into one of the parts and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah. I mean,
Um
you
so
could even, I think, like Disney is the master of the dark ride, where like where you just get in the car or the boat or something and you just ride through,
yeah.
like like Pirates of the Caribbean or Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, or those types of rides, right? They're the masters of dark rides. I mean, Nintendo could totally do the dark ride thing super super cool, right? Like I
Hmm.
think I think what the Yoshi's Island, Yoshi's Adventure ride is a dark ride, right? Um
Think so, yes.
I've tried to pay a little bit of attention, but like I don't know. Like I said, like the the way the Japanese park is set up just like really turns me off from wanting to go, because it's so claustrophobic. It feels so claustrophobic, and I'm like, I really hope when they bring it here, they spread it out.
Spread it out.
Plus, like the Donkey Kong expansion, I think is coming with a roller coaster, um, which I think will be fun. So yeah, I mean, I think Nintendo's doing it the right way. Slow and steady wins the race, I guess. But like, I think they'll get there, and I think Nintendo wants to move past being a kids gaming company, which is kind of what they're forward facing, right? Pretty much, and be an entertainment company. And they want to be more than a toy company. They want to be more than games, right? And I think
Yes.
the way you do that is, yeah, you make movies. I think they've seen the success of like Sonic and Detective Pikachu and Castlevania on Netflix and stuff like that, and they're like, we could totally do that and blow everybody else out of the water, right? And
Yeah. I
um,
think that the Pikmin shorts have been a to me personally, the Pikmin shorts has been a good example because
mhm,
people have enjoyed them. And they'd be like, I want to see more of this.
yeah, and you don't
You
go out
know,
and buy like pretty much a movie production studio to like put it in your back pocket, right? They're gonna do more, right? We
right.
clearly, like, after watching that second Mario movie trailer, we clearly know there's a Donkey Kong movie coming. Do you see how many Kongs there are in that movie? Like, geez, this might
Oh
as well be a
yes.
Donkey Kong movie. Um, there's an ode to Smash. Like, I mean, they
Smash.
could do an MCU style Nintendo universe.
We I think that's what they're gonna
I
lead to
I think it's
because
coming. I don't know if it'll
because
be as big as the MCU, but they're gonna have a shared universe of movies, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean because Donkey Kong comes from the Mario universe in a sense
I know, but they
and
could totally do
everything.
like a Star Fox movie or show, and they could totally do.
Yeah.
Man, the hardest one would be Zelda, though. The
Well,
hardest one would be Zelda.
I think the is it would it be hard because people don't know what style it would be? Like, do you want to animate it? Do you want it CG or do you want it real life?
Well,
And the
it. De-
reason why I say that, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say it depends on like how do you want this universe to fit together? Is it gonna fit in a Smash Brothers style universe, or is it just gonna be like, here's the Mario universe, here's the I don't know space universe with F Zero
Mm.
and Star Fox and Metroid over here, and here's the Zelda universe, and like, do you want them all to fit together or do you not? That's you have to decide that first. And we've kind of talked about that a lot already, but like I think you're going to start seeing a lot more Nintendo products outside of games in the next 5 years. I bet in the next 5 years we're gonna have the Donkey Kong movie. We're gonna have a sequel to the Mario movie. We're gonna probably have 2 or 3 TV shows, and
Hmm.
obviously that the theme park and I don't know. I think they want to build their brand and brand recognition, so when their next console comes out, they're gonna hit the ground running, right? I mean
Yeah.
that's I don't know, man. Nintendo's growing. I think they're making the right moves, except for not having a more powerful console. That's my only complaint right now about Nintendo is that like their hardware is getting old, and it was old when it came out, but like we all look past it because we know it's Nintendo. But now it's like we talked a little bit about it on Pow Block this week, but like it's it's time for more powerful hardware.
Well, and I think, of course, Nintendo is always researching and developing. I think they're getting ready uh to, they always like they said they want to be a kind of a step ahead by being innovative.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't mean because my thing is this. We can say that you can have the most powerful console. And then we always say, well, I say this, so science and everybody, you can have the most powerful console, but why are you getting a game like Gotham Knights? You can have the most powerful console, but you're still getting stuttering. You're still getting, um, you're still getting pop in. You're still getting stuff like that. And I know that's up to different developers and their budget and stuff but you should be able to not, these problems should be minimum, like really minimum if you're running on powerful hardware. If Nintendo is going to do powerful hardware, people are going to expect um more narrative games. I know we was talking on Pablock that you want a Zelda game like Horizon Zero Dawn. You know,
Mm-hmm.
how does Nintendo create that to tell a story like that in Zelda? Because the thing about it is that, of course, you need powerful hardware to tell that kind of story, but that's a lot of cinematic. That's more cinematics than what the gameplay is and stuff. And I think Nintendo, that's one of their strong suits. They're not strong enough for cinematics. Microsoft is because the Xenoblade series is based, of course, it's a big story, but they've been doing cutscenes and stuff and everything.
Mm-hmm.
When have we known it to do even motion capture and stuff
I mean,
and
I
everything? And
think I think Zelda was pretty much the first one, right? I mean, like
mhm,
to really take advantage of a lot of that stuff that um like some sort of story and cutscenes and whatever, like I think Breath of the Wild was like their first kind of what I would call a major attempt by Nintendo to do that, right? I mean, we've had
yeah,
cutscenes and you know whatever before, but like these ones have words in them and these ones have real kind of cinematic implications and stuff, and it was nice to see a little bit of that. But I like I don't know, man. I think of all the games I've played over the last decade or two, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I would say since like the 360 PS3 era, and you just look at the advancements in storytelling and cinematics, and I know games aren't all about that. I know that's not what Nintendo's goal is, right? I know that games are not really all about that, but like I still think that, you know, the game that sticks out the most for me in terms of what I would want to see Nintendo try to do is Horizon Zero Dawn, and presumably Forbidden West. I haven't played it yet, but from all accounts, I mean that game I hear is fantastic, and the trailers and stuff all looked beautiful and stuff. And I'm just like, man, I would love Nintendo to do something like that. And like, what makes it even worse is that they've done it to us twice. They've teased us with it twice. First with the Space World demo for GameCube, right? The GameCube Zelda,
Yeah.
and then the Wii U tech demo, right? And I know it was just a tech demo, but you can't don't show us a tech demo for lighting effects on a castle like that. If you're not going to give us a
Yeah.
Zelda game that looks like that, that game looks incredible. That tech demo is the prettiest thing Nintendo's ever done. Period. End of discussion.
The crazy thing, I think, Corey, yes, and I agree with you. I think because we're getting new talent in Nintendo, as long as we live, God, let us live to see it. I think it's going to happen in the future. And I think, like, I don't want to say the old guards or anything. Like, with them, like Miyamoto, I think he's gonna sit down with these young talented people, and he's gonna learn.
Well, I think
Because I'm
I
like,
think we've
man,
seen
if
that. I think sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think we've seen that
no,
with like, Koizumi taking over for, the Mario team, and he seems pretty young and whatever,
yeah,
right? Like we've seen innovations from like the Splatoon team, right? They're all pretty young, and I mean they're all, you know, uh stewards of Mario Sunshine, right? And I mean that's clearly where Splatoon comes from, is Mario Sunshine, right? I mean that's
yes,
I don't think you can look at Splatoon, like the first one at least, and say that was clearly inspired by Mario Sunshine. Um,
exactly.
Even like the younger Zelda team, yeah, Anuma's still the producer, but like they've had a young director on that game since Skyward Sword, right? Like Skyward Sword stuck to was like a probably like a learning game for him to direct a game, but then Breath of
Hmm.
the Wild, he knocked it out of the water. Uh,
Yeah,
and him kind of co-directing Link Between Worlds was like another kind of revelation, right? Like that those you look at the evolution of Zelda just between those three games alone, and you're like, wow. Like you can see the change happening. And Nintendo Life wrote an article about how Tears of the Kingdom could be the third game in a trilogy that starts with Skyward Sword. I hope that Skyward Sword is not the first game in this trilogy, because I do not
I
want to
look,
go
I look,
backwards.
I was to say, did you want to say science tangent and go?
Yeah. Whoops, I did not mean to do that. I hope I didn't change anything.
Well, um,
Hold on. I don't know. I didn't mean to do that. We're just gonna click off that. But what I'm saying is like you see these games, and like the one game that like since I mean even the talent at Monolith Soft, right, and
mhm.
some of the younger teams who are working on like the spin-off games for Kirby and stuff. I look at the Switch's kind of first party output, and the game that's the least interesting out of all of their first party output from Nintendo internal teams is Mario Odyssey. Like just from a straight gameplay perspective, because it's like that's the one game I can point to from Nintendo first party that's not like a re-release or whatever, and say as soon as I turn it on, I'm like, I've played that before, you know. And I know it does different things with like the hat mechanics and stuff, and some of the worlds are cool. Like New Donk City is pretty cool, right? But like
Yeah,
you look at Breath of the Wild, it's totally different. You look at the way Xenoblade has presented itself. It's those two games are major RPGs, but they tell stories and they do things differently than previous RPGs on the Switch, right?
yeah,
Arms is completely different. Splatoon is a new idea. I mean, I know I've played Splatoon before on Wii U, but like that was a new idea, right? And it's just really fun to see this young talent do cool gameplay things. Now, bring in some storytellers and tell us some great stories, right? That's the thing. And like I think the games that tell the best stories are like the games that aren't Nintendo internally, right? You look at like Xenoblade, great
Mm-hmm.
stories. Metroid Dread told an interesting story. Granted, I have no idea what kind of story they're telling because A, I'm really bad at the game and didn't get far enough in it yet. And B, this is the first 2D Metroid game I've actually attempted to play since the original Metroid. Uh, but that story they're telling a story, you know.
And I think that's why on Twitter there was a person who asked this question: "What's the most underrated game that you know?" And I put Metroid Other M. And there's other people just like, "Oh man, I remember the controversy, but how much fun!" And we just had a discussion about it, and it was just like I said. I was saying this is a game that people who didn't like it never really studied Team Ninja or anything. Also, you don't, in a sense, know the background of Samus. This was a different take on her, with the Metroid team and with Team Ninja. Like we haven't heard her talk. We haven't heard like her having. Yeah, there were some plot elements that was kind of weird, and the gameplay was kind of different and stuff. But I'm like, man, if you would play a Ninja Gaiden, a modern Ninja Gaiden game on Xbox or PlayStation, you would be like, what are y'all doing with y'all design? And it kind of felt like it was fixed in that. But I'm like, we got a Metroid game that is a story because Metroid was all about atmosphere. What if atmosphere is like overplay and not accepted anything? Where does Samus or and the Metro series go? You know, and I feel like Metroid Other M was a step to showcase, like, okay, yeah, let's not really. I mean, there's some atmosphere, but let's give Samus a story. Let's give her a narrative and everything. And then Metroid Dread comes out, and it has a story in this 2D plane, and everything. But it tells a very interesting story at different bits and stuff. And both games do story differently because Metro Dread is very cinematic. It still has that kind of American meets Japanese fence with where Metro Other M really was just like a sci somebody would say the sci-fi channel uh, kind of direction. But I'm like, it really had this kind of like low pace predator aliens kind of feel to it in this presentation. And I think that's something when Nintendo takes risks in games and stuff like that, whether you like it or not, you cannot deny that, hey, we try to do something different. We try to um not I won't say appeal to American gamers, but we try to incorporate something that we thought was creative, that people would appreciate in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
you know and I think with the future, with their like future games and stuff, um as we mentioned, like these young teams, like I love that, that they're playing Microsoft, that they're playing Sony, that they're playing PC and other games and stuff, because they're learning, they're getting something from it. They're not, I'm gonna say they're not stealing ideas, but they're trying to be like, how can we take this how can we take this game mechanic and improve upon it, or make it feel familiar but still something new to the player
Mm-hmm.
and everything. Um and shoot, like what, half of the library is probably from external teams, like we talk about a good relationship with Bandai Namco and with Platinum Games, but now they got a good relationship with Mercury's team. They got a good relationship with Way Forward. Um, you know, uh, with doing their games and stuff. They got a good relationship with Sega, which is surprising. It kind of just feels like, uh, and I kind of wish they would go have a good relationship with Capcom. I think they got a mutual relationship, but like I would love for Capcom to make some games exclusive for Nintendo, use their IP. I would love Konami to jump in the ring. Me and Laurent was talking about what would happen if Twin States came to Switch and stuff. Like, what would people think of the Metal Gear series if that happened? Because I'm just like, that's a game really. If you weren't if you weren't around at that time when the GameCube when that game was out, you might missed a lot about the Metal Gear series. Because I still feel to this way that I feel like Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes kind of changed the Metal Gear formula series after that stuff.
Yeah. I,
You know.
I yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I just you know, I don't really know what I was about to say. I think
Okay.
Nintendo, in terms of what they're doing and expanding, I think they're doing a lot of things well. I feel like in a lot of ways they're a little bit behind, and but I think they're going to make adjustments and
Hmm.
catch up, in a sense, because of their leadership, and they've already shown a drastic change of direction for the company in a lot of ways, you know, maybe
Yes.
ones that you can't see or hear about every day, but they have made that change. I think the Switch was a big part of that first stepping stone of change, right? And I think the theme park and the movie and rumblings of other things happening, and um, I think they're moving in the right direction. And I actually think Furukawa has done a great job leading the company in this direction.
Yeah.
Um, not as forward facing as Iwata was, or Reggie, right? But like definitely a good business person, a person who makes a lot of smart decisions for the company, and um, I think they're heading in the right direction.
Yeah. A lot of their decisions been, like you said, been paying off. Like they got the numbers of Switch alone. Um, Man, you was looking at the numbers from Mario Kart. That's for like 48 million,
Hmm.
and growing.
Yeah.
Um, there was a news story, I think that just came out today, or someone posted it like, um, a big percentage of console sales on Black Friday in the UK was Switch, was the Mario Kart bundle. So
Hmm.
that's more sales. And good for Microsoft, they got 40% with the Series S, sales
Hmm.
and stuff. Like, that kind of just to show you, yeah, the tech is getting old. It's time to kind of refresh it or bring out a new system. Um, but if stuff is selling, if games are still selling,
Yeah. No, I
if
mean, from
it's
a business standpoint, it doesn't
yeah,
make sense, right? But just from like a like a customer, just please, we were talking about earlier, like Borderlands just got rated, like Borderlands 3 just got rated. That game,
yeah,
that game has like PlayStation 5 and Series X versions. Like I the first two run well, right? Or three, I guess.
mhm.
Because of the pre-sequel, I guess would be the third one. But like those were Xbox 360 games, not Xbox Series X games. So I'm hoping for the best. But we'll see. We'll see.
I mean, shoot, that new Borderlands game that came out with Tales from the Borderland, I think that dropped.
Oh
Like
yeah, Tales
no
from the
one,
Borderlands. Just it. I think it bombed. I truly think it bombed.
it bombed because it just dropped and no one talked about it. Like no one knew that it was out or anything.
I mean, they just didn't do a great job of promoting it, and then it wasn't the original team, none of the original characters from that first game,
Hmm.
and like when they said they were doing it internally, I think when they announced it, like Randy Pitchford was still kind of like the head of, Gearbox Software, right? Like, I mean, he's still the head of Gearbox, but like in a way different capacity since Embracer bought them, right? And so he's more of like the head of the overall brand. I guess it would be Gearbox Entertainment, and they have a new head of the studio, but like I feel like there's a combination of things that went wrong, and I know a lot of people don't care for Randy Pitchford and his magic, we'll say, in more ways than one, including real magic, but also you guys can look up that whole saga, I guess. So I just want Nintendo to do well, but I also want like a better Nintendo, if that makes sense.
I understand. I know people are just. I think people don't want Nintendo to be compared to the other ones or compete. Like they still want Nintendo to feel their own, but they just want them to be equal with the other consoles.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I don't know. We could do a whole nother hour, but I don't have the energy to fight this fight right now.
No. I think I agree with you and everything. I think it's just that with Nintendo, they just kind of need to. I'm not saying they need to catch up with the times, but we know if they had the power to do it, like make the games that people really want them to make, I think Nintendo would do that. And I think they also are thinking about Japan themselves, their native land. Because I'm just like, if the Japanese gamers and the American gamers kind of want the same thing, and the UK also, they all want the same thing, and we have the ability to deliver it, let's deliver it to them. We still want to be a system that is for everybody. But if we could like bring in some, to see Nintendo and Ninja Theory team up to do something to tell a narrative game and do motion capture and stuff. Like I would literally be amazed if Nintendo went to Microsoft to be like, we want to sit in on one of your teams and see how they make games. As crazy as that sounds, Ninja Theory will probably be if I was sending people to Microsoft to be like, study some of their stuff to get an idea, instead of just doing the movie thing, I will send them to Ninja Theory. I want to see how you guys create these worlds and stuff. When I learn, we could come back. So this is what they kind of do. Okay, let's put our spin. We got a film company, so let's put our spin on it and everything. And hopefully they say thank you, Microsoft, for helping us, for teaching us.
Yeah,
we got powerful hardware and tech in our system, so let's deliver this Legend of Zelda. That one that we showed for GameCube, we're going to bring that up better.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think we got a little wrap right here.
Yeah, it seems that way. We did it, and it's time for bed.
Corey, quickly, where can we find you?
You can find me at I am Corey HD on Twitter and Instagram. You can also find me on Nintendo Power Block, the Boss Rush podcast, and various other things here on the Boss Rush Network.
You guys can find me on Twitter at ThatVeteraCode and on Instagram. Also check us out on Discord. Check us out on Twitter at Power Block Podcast. And check us out at bossrush.net. And coming soon or sometime in the future, probably a little bit. You can check out bossrushmedia.com, I believe, Corey.
Yeah, it's not up yet, but it's fine.
Yeah, that's what I said, in the future. But with that, everybody, have a great week. Have a great weekend. And we'll see you next time on Nintendo Expansion Pass. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye. Stay tuned for Ed talking about something for a half hour while I put my kids to bed. Goodbye.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Nintendo Expansion Pass. This episode, we are going to be talking about some things, but right now, I am your host, Eddie B. Right, and as you can see, I'm by myself. Kind of going to have a little push note. And they got talking about the Game Awards and some of the categories. Now, definitely was enjoying it from what I was hearing. And I kind of was just wondering when it came to one category, which kind of deals with multiplayer games. Um, they were talking about the nominations, and it kind of got me thinking with the way that they were discussing the games and giving their reasons. It got me thinking about how people grasp, and meaning that how do people learn games? And if you learn that game, if you develop a skill for it, is that the way that you see a genre of games in that particular style? You and so, and while listening to it, because I was driving the car from my friend's house, it got me thinking about, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. It also got me thinking about Apex Legends and Splatoon 3. And I was thinking about it in a sense that all three games, although the main component is the multiplayer aspect of them, it kind of got me thinking about those are three different design games to grasp. And I, and it kind of made me think that I think adults sometimes can't grasp games that is like kind of easy for everyone, or that does something different. And I don't think kids grasp more mature titles because they think that it's just, killing and everything. That, you just shoot a person and knowing that the weapon that you use and stuff, or the tactics that you use can help you survive a little bit longer. Um, Now, this doesn't include cheating and the mods and stuff like that, and bots and things. But I kind of want to break it down in a sense for you guys. In Call of Duty, just a regular death match, you win by having the most score. When the timer goes down, or I think if you put it in points, the first one to those points win the game. Basic. Nothing wrong with that. Apex Legend, you only get one chance in the game, and you'll be forced to die, or you gotta defeat someone, or you be defeated and everything until there's one person left. It still have the components of a regular death match and everything, but you kind of got to think in a way since you guys are a team of three in that game. Splatoon, though, does something different that I kind of feel like haven't been done before in a multiplayer game. And this is coming from the Wii U perspective, not the latest one and everything. In Splatoon, your goal is to cover the area with your team's paint and vice versa. And when defeat a opponent on the other side, only halts their progress. Doesn't make you win the game or anything by defeating them. It just makes them halts the progress. Everybody can um resurface at any time, and we're at that team spot that they start off. And when you halt another team's progress, you're taking over that area because you're painting, or you're inking with your team's color. And at the end of 3 minutes, you have um, someone deciding who is going to be the victor by showing who has the most paint in the most area, and then they do a percentage. It always it should end up in 100%, but sometimes you can each have 45%, or I would say 50%, I'll say, but you may get an edge of 50.5, and they have well, I'm gonna phrase that. You might have 50.6 and they may have 50.4. And because that is more than a point 0.4, that team will win the game and everything. So it's kind of something that I think some adults don't grasp, in a sense that they're trying to learn, from a person who probably played a lot of modern not modern warfare, but modern first person shooters. Trying something like Splatoon is kind of different because you're used to going guns a blazing, working with a team or friends that of course, headsets and talking and stuff. But this Splatoon is so diverse because the teams are mixed up with players from around the world. If you came in with your friends, um, now you'll probably have that option to all be a team. But if you just went into multiplayer, just want to see how it plays or see who you're going to team up with, you have different ages and different people playing the game from across the world. So it kind of gives it um, a different look, a different style to approach and a skill to learn. So it's kind of amazing that, here in Splatoon 3, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Apex Legend, Fortnite, um, Sea of Thieves, like a lot of big multiplayer games all play different in some way in this time. But grasping that play style and that skill level kind of varies in a sense, because I think some adults who might look at Splatoon from an outside perspective be like, that's not my jam, or that looks dumb, that looks kitty and stuff, until they get their hands on it and they start losing. Once they start losing, that competitiveness kind of kicks in, and they have to start learning, what is this game really about? How do I learn the tricks and stuff? Or they may just give up and go back to what they're known for. Um, it's really interesting on grasping games. And when it comes to Nintendo, grasping their games is simple, but hard to master, in a sense. Because I think with Nintendo games, when you're playing The Legend of Zelda, um, or Mario Brothers or Metroid or even Donkey Kong and stuff, or Kirby, Fire Emblem, Ice, Eternal Darkness, even Metal Gear Solid, the Twin Snakes, on GameCube, uh, playing golf, or even if you want to go back, playing Mario Brothers on Atari 2600. Nintendo games always have something easier to start you with, and as the game progresses, it gets a little bit more challenging. And if you want to complete everything, they're kind of going to make you work for it by using the tools that they provided. In this modern age, I think grasping games is something that people are still not kind of doing, in a sense. And now that sounds weird, but I think if you look at um, games that like we cover on Talk the Walk and stuff, people don't grasp that those kind of games, even though they feel a little bit casual, it's about the narrative. It's about taking the time to um listen to the story, get that character development, make choices, see the artwork, and appreciate that at your own pace, and just taking in what these creators and developers are trying to deliver, are trying to portray, um and everything. There's a there's a game that me and Corey covered from our indie showcase. Um, like we have a like an indie video kind of podcast kind of discussion and everything, and we kind of it's called in the Gardens Between, and it's a game that has it's natural, but it's a little bit challenging because it's a puzzle game that revolved around the world, and your two characters have different powers to help you solve puzzles and get through the game, or you get through that level. And it has a deeper meaning when you finish the game. And I won't ruin for anything, but kind of took a while because I'm like, okay, we know how puzzle games work, or puzzles in games, how that work. But it's always kind of challenging to see how to put it together when you haven't developed a skill to solve puzzles in that way. You know, I can't give someone a cryptogram puzzle. All they ever did was crosswords or word search, I should say. I won't say crosswords, word search puzzles. You know, if I try to give someone a cryptogram, they'll be like, so how does this work? You know, it'll kind of be hard to grasp because you have to think of like common words um that each letter is a key to another letter to solve the puzzle. And most of the time, cryptograms are quotes from famous celebrities or advice or even unknown. Sometimes it's even like little things from Aesop fables. It's kind of hard to grasp because in a person who's used to word search, they're looking for the word to circle it or cross it or whatever and be like, okay, I got the answer, I can move on. It's a little bit more casual, a little bit easier to understand. Uh, but I think once you learn how cryptograms go, even logic puzzles, in a sense, when you start learning how they are, and you start doing more, you start developing a skill. And so that's kind of how the Nintendo games are. You got to take time to develop those that skill and things of that nature. And it's kind of amazing to me because some people they just some people just dismiss Nintendo games. Um, in the sense that we kind of had the discussion, are they still kiddie and everything? And I don't think they are kiddie. I think they are just games that's available for anyone who wants to play them. Think people sometimes, I won't say people, I think sometimes gamers like to judge people who play that game and everything. Um, Regardless of ratings, review scores and stuff like that. There's If people are having fun with that game, a lot of people get judged about why, and I think it's because those who on the outside looking in haven't grasped the fact that, this is a game that's suitable for this person because it's fun, it's easier for to get into, it helps them develop a skill to games and everything. Um, you just can't you really just can't give someone like a Dark Souls, or even I'll even go back. You can't even give a lot of people nowadays like Ninja Gaiden for the NES or Castlevania, because of the difficulty of those games. But if they learn if they start memorizing the levels, they start developing that skill for memorization because that's what a lot of games are based off of. And Nintendo, yes, they kind of have that, but sometimes, sometimes it's not designed that way to do that level by memorize to remember that game. I'm not trying to say memorization. To remember that level and stuff. Nintendo just kind of have a different design philosophy when it comes to their games, and I think that's what a lot of people grasp. And maybe that's probably what happens with Xbox players and Sony gamers, and even PC and those who like AAA games and stuff. Is how they grasp how they learn the gameplay, how they learn what skills it takes, the combos and stuff. There's I had a discussion about Fortnite and Mega Man, and this is gonna sound weird, but it was kind of about how people who play Fortnite should be able to play Mega Man. Yes, the skill doesn't um transfer like that. But if all you've been doing is a lot of platform jumping, even when you're building and stuff, and you're doing a lot of shooting, you should be able to equate that in a sense. I know you're not supposed to, or it doesn't go that way, but you should be able to equate that skill to a Mega Man game because you are shooting and you are jumping, you are dodging with your jumps, and you are like sliding. The thing about it is that you just don't get any guns until you get to the boss and you defeat it. That's the only time you get another gun. And you get energy pellets and you have to refill that power that you got after defeating the boss. With Fortnite, there's so much random weapons and um, abilities that affect your status um, that you that is kind of like easy to have. And I think if you spend more time with Fortnite and not enough time with Mega Man, um, you kind of be like you kind of see how people would grasp upon games. And yes, Mega Man is a older game, but even if you look at Mega Man 9, the it's there's some mechanics in there that you still have to grasp as a gamer and stuff. Even with Ghouls and Ghosts Resurrection, it's that old school gameplay and that difficulty challenge, and it's hard to grasp when you have to worry about where you jump, where you land, um, how far you go, trick enemies that come out of places, timing and everything, the weapon that you have. It takes a lot for you to even get through one stage of Ghosts and Goblins because it's a lot to learn. And of course, I'm kind of leading into the Dark Souls things, um, and stuff. But like Dark Souls is kind of like I say, is a little bit easy. Some of the Souls games are a little easier than Wolves and Ghosts because the memorization of those games are very different in that sense. And think with some of the Souls games, the basis of attacking, dodging, and counterattacking, and making sure you have enough heal potions and knowing your limit of your status bar on how much you can attack and get in your power. You kind of don't have those things in Ghosts and Goblins. You actually have unlimited usage of your weapon. Um, but you have to make sure that you use that weapon correctly on enemies and at the right place. And because like your placing is important in that sense. When it comes to Nintendo, though, and grasping their games and stuff, I think now in this modern age, there's a different viewpoint of Nintendo than it was back in the day and stuff. I think it was easier to grasp their games because definitely wouldn't, the thing about Nintendo's just like if they got a new IP, most people are willing to go and try it and see what it's about. Um, Not knowing who may develop it, like what team and stuff, they are always interested to try it. Now, Fire Emblem is a different story because Fire Emblem was a hard game to grasp, hard game to play because you had to think of the paper rock scissors motive, not motive, the paper rock scissors gameplay in that, but you had to place the right person with the right weapon to fight the other enemy, and that game was challenging if you didn't know how to play it right and everything. Because if your player character died, they weren't coming back for the rest of the game. And I think here in America, we weren't used to that. When we die in games, we're thinking now that a checkpoint or a save point has saved us and it just resurrect us and everything. We don't think about permadeath anymore because definitely for Fire Emblem, um, that idea of that series has been removed unless you play on a harder difficulty and everything. If you play the other Fire Emblems, like the older ones before Awakening, once you died, that was it. If you really wanted that character back, you had to restart the whole game over because once it was dead, it autosave. You weren't getting that character back. Um, Even in Pokemon, even though Pokemon doesn't have permadeath, if you saved up a lot of money and you lose a battle, you get your savings cut in half. Same thing with Dragon Quest. And Dragon Quest really was one to where you would spend all that time grinding, and if you did not save at that church and you died, you were or someone sorry about that. Someone died in your party, you literally had to get back to that town, definitely go to that church and have them resurrect that character. You had to pay money. And the price of the resurrection went up. So, it's kind of hard to grasp that and everything. When it comes to some of these games. Definitely for Nintendo, I think they kind of made it easier now compared to back then. I know I said it was easier back then because I think a lot of people were into video games. Nowadays, video games is not accepted by everybody, but it's anyone could jump in and play. The casual community has grown and hopefully they feel welcome into gaming, where some who are experts or who've been gaming for years kind of have hopefully expanded their way of play um and everything. And hopefully they have jumped into new genres uh, to learn a skill and everything. Not everybody play JRPGs or Western RPGs because they all play different in that sense. They're all differently executed, even though they all fall under the basic RPG banner and everything. Um, Not everybody plays those kind of games and understand that their design and the skill doesn't always translate very well. Like if you play Mass Effect and everything, you're not going to be able to use what you use in Mass Effect on, let's say, Secret of Mana and stuff. Like Secret of Mana is so melee combat with some magic where Mass Effect sorry about that, is mostly based um on guns and the uses of that kind of arsenal. Is even though they all both contain role playing game mechanics of leveling up, um, Mass Effect has a different way of telling the story because you're choosing. I mean, there are set pieces that you will go, and there's no way that you could change or anything. But the way that you communicate and you relate to other customers, sorry about that, relate to other customers, relate to other characters, you kind of get an understanding on on how you want the story to be. As in Secret of Mana, you're fighting outside the town, but when you go to different towns, that's where you get the story until you fight a boss or until you meet a certain character. There's a lot that happens with that and everything. So I think it's like when you're grasping games, it takes a while to understand that, you know, you shouldn't be able to diss a game because you it's something that's not your tea, or it's something that um you're not going to enjoy or play. Now, everybody's just like, but Aiden, you don't you diss It Takes Two because of the creator? Yes, yes. But, you know, if if someone said, Eddie, I want to play It Takes Two, would you join me? I would join them. I would give the game a fair shake. I give Grand Theft Auto games a fair shake and everything because I know how to play those games, how to play an open world game. And I know how Rockstar kind of been trying to better the game and how to play those games and everything. It's just that sometimes there are moments where I just be like, there's some moments that kind of ruin that flow. But I, but as growing up as a gamer and playing games outside of Nintendo, I have been able to develop new skills and grasp what these creators are going for, what these developers are going for, and everything. Um, so it's kind of when you think of the Game Awards, when it comes to stuff being snubbed, it may be that some people just feel like they haven't grasped that game because they don't have no interest in it, or they haven't uh, started playing it just yet or anything. Like, and I can say this: I haven't played Immortality. I actually didn't know anything about the game until they mentioned it on the Game Awards. Um, and I was just like, "Oh, I've never heard of this game." And hopefully, one day I would take some time to play it. Like I'll pick it up and play it and stuff. Um, I can say that there's like some indie games that are in the show that I haven't got a chance to play yet, because I just haven't picked it up. But I feel like during the Game Awards they'll have a sale on it, and people will go and pick those games up while they're on sale. There's more indie games that I want to pick up because it is something that I love indies. I love going in and learning what newness they're gonna bring to the games industry, what they're gonna be bring to video games in general. And I love grasping those games and just taking the time to be like, oh, this is a 3 to 5, 6 hour um short game or even an hour and a half, or just narrative stuff that I am controlling the character and I'm learning and like doing puzzles and stuff and seeing how if it's going to connect to me emotionally and what I'm going to like say about it when I talk about it on Playing with Power or if I'm on Crossroads or both. Hmm. Sorry about that, everybody. If I'm on Busford podcast, I'll be able to talk about those games and give more detail. Ooh, sorry about that. So I think that we can and we should. I think we should take the time out to learn new games. I think we should take the time to find some games that we can um, try to like grasp, try to enjoy and learn that new skill and stuff. And yes, everybody can't play everything that comes out, but it would be nice if people, I think, if, if you are going to take the time to grasp a game, take the time to like really enjoy it or really learn it. I know we talk about um Xbox Game Pass and everything, and how people want to try those games to see if they're liking the stuff. And I kind of feel like if you want to do that, great, fine. But hopefully that you do get something out of it, even if you stop playing it, that you grasp what they're going for. Um, because it really is important. I think that's why when we talk about games and what people like to play and making recommendations and stuff, because we think it's going to be something that that person is going to grasp to.